Welcome to Envision Broadcasting, the station designed to encourage, equip, and empower you for growth and success presents The Momentum Shift. A show where we get inspired, we get moving, and we get results. Every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern with your host, Eric Collier. He's the mayor of motivation and mental quicksand expert, bringing you inspiring interviews and empowering stories that will help to improve lives. If you're ready to start making the impossible possible, then you've joined the right show, because the momentum shift is what you've been looking for.
And my speech was about living the life untapped. And I talked about the very last conversation I had with my mother in spring 2005 before she passed away. Now, I didn't, of course, know it was going to be our last conversation. And we were just chatting about something. I had a young son. He was 3 years old, and I was having to make a decision. And I had invested this, money for this big program. And I'm like, oh, but I don't feel like it's the right thing. And just out of the blue, she just said, sometimes, sweetheart, you have to lose to gain. If that's not a right fit for him, sometimes you have to lose to gain it. And in the moment that she said it, I thought, well, this is a profound conversation to have on a Tuesday night. And okay, I wasn't expecting that from her. Yeah. And little did I know that was going to be my last conversation with her.
Hello, I'm C. Eric Collier, the mayor of motivation. As a motivational keynote speaker, veteran, and two-time Amazon International bestselling co-author, I bring a unique blend of inspiration, experience, and success to your event. I specialize in helping individuals unlock their true potential and break through barriers to turning the impossible into possible.
Because I'm somebody who believes that the largest gap an individual will face is the gap that stands between where they are now and what they could become. So the question becomes, are you willing to climb? The greatest trick the mind will ever pull is convincing you that your greatness does not exist. Mama used to say, she said, Eric, what you do in the dark will come out in the light. And she means that you reap what you sow. You get what you put in. And so you got to put the work in. Why? Because you're going to step your game up and tap into that untapped potential of yours and become the greatest person that you can possibly become.
I woke up, I was about to lose everything. And so my wife was about to leave me. And that meant my 3 children were going to be gone, which really hurt me because I would fall short on the promise to my kids, where I told them that I was their father. Nobody would ever be in the house taking care of them. Nobody would be responsible for them. They never had to worry about calling anybody daddy but me. Momentum shift. When you get stuck, you got to find a way to get going. And that is all about elevating your performance. You have to realize that high-level results are not products of low-level effort. So you got to step your game up. So you get stuck, you got to get yourself moving. And when you're down in the dumps, you're the only one that's going to be there. So you got to be your own hype man.
What happens is when you don't realize that you have all that you ever need to create the life that you want to live, you're missing out. You're standing at the base of that mountain thinking and hoping somebody's going to save you when all you got to do is take action. Theodore Roosevelt said, he said that the credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena with their face marred in dust with sweat and blood. You got to get into the arena, claim your moment, take the opportunity to take your shot. Then when you're in that arena, think about this. I got to step my game up.
Eric's message was extremely powerful.
The power of overcoming is not just connected to you. You're rising because the people behind you are counting on you. Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
When you choose me, you're not just booking a speaker. You're inviting a transformational experience that will leave your audience empowered and ready to conquer their goals. Let's make your event unforgettable. Reach out to me today at the number 1 momentumshift.com. That's the number 1 momentumshift.com.
Hello and welcome to the Momentum Shift, a show designed to get you inspired, get you moving so you can get results. We want you to make the impossible possible for you. Hello, I'm Eric Collier, the mayor of motivation and your host for the Momentum Shift podcast and radio show. Tonight, I have a special guest with me. She's very inspiring. She's an award-winning author of, 9 books? Am I right on that one?
12 books, but 9 novels. 9 novels.
9 novels, 12 books. She's a poet. She's a speaker. And I really love what she's got going on. She wants you to live life untapped. She wants to know who's speaking to your heart. She wants you to, I forgot the other one. She wants you to
Create your someday list.
Create your someday. Make someday
Follow those.
today.
Yep. Yep. Follow those dreams that won't let go.
Yes, 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 man. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome me, Miss Stacy Hawkins Adams. Stacy, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. And it's an honor to be here with you, Eric.
I love this. You know, I've gotten a chance to read up about you, and man, just sitting here looking at your books. I think I told you that before, the books, and we'll talk about that a little later. But the show, the Momentum Shift podcast and radio show, is designed to help people go from being stuck to living in the impossible, from thinking in the terms of lack and not believing in themselves, to really living in what they thought they could never accomplish. So what I want to do is help people create a momentum shift that changes their life. So with that, the momentum shift, what does the momentum shift mean to you, and how have you used that to change your life?
Wow, I love that. I love that question. I love the mission of the podcast and all of that, because it really aligns with my message about Life Untapped. That's a hashtag that I've been using, and a phrase I've been using for almost 20 years. I have an author newsletter called Life Untapped. I have a blog, lifeuntapped.com. And as I said, I use that hashtag on social media. And it aligns with what you're talking about, because I think what we both are saying is that we get one shot at this. We get one shot, at least on earth, that we know of.
Right.
And we're here for a purpose. We all have something that we are uniquely designed to add to this earth. And when we can tap into what that is, it allows us to have this momentum. It allows us to just flourish. It allows us to live this life untapped. And so for me, I've done that through my writing since I was a 5-year-old. I mean, I've always known I was a writer. I was blessed to find out as a child what my gift was. And I think for others, you may not find out as a child. You might be 55, you might be 60, 65, whatever your age or stage. Every season has a purpose and a meaning. And what are you meant to learn in that season? And how are you meant to serve in that season? And that can lead to your momentum shift.
Yeah, I like that. I was sitting here thinking, you said at 5 you started writing and you were loving it. I'm thinking at 5 I was trying to be Evel Knievel.
Well, I will tell you, I was telling someone else on a recent interview, I had this little green table. I don't know why my mom bought me a green table. It was a big round table, and I would have my little tea parties on it. But every now and then I would stand on it and make it my stage. So I really was trying to be Diana Ross. But when I went to reading and writing, I thought I was Diana Ross until I figured out I really can't hold a tune.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Hey, as long as you feel good inside when you're singing, it's all right.
There you go. Hey, every day.
So outside of wanting to be Diana Ross at 5 and starting to really write, talk to me about who Stacy Hawkins Adams is.
Wow, that's a great question too. So I think, I'm a person of faith. So first of all, I'm going to have to say I am God's grateful daughter. I am God's grateful daughter.
All right.
And have been for many, many years. And with that, as an early child involved in church, and, grew up in the Deep South, grew up in Arkansas. So understanding that as, you go to church, you pray, you kneel, those kind of things. But as I grew older, and the arc of that has become, I'm God's grateful daughter who understands his grace and his unconditional love. So that means I'm a person who's not rigid. That means I'm a person who likes to have fun. I like to laugh. I like to look for the best in other people. I try to give everybody grace. I try to understand that you never know what somebody's going through. So your smile, your kindness, or whatever you do in a moment, you always want to leave people better than you find them. So that's my personal motto and my mission. And Stacy is a person who, I use words to uplift, enlighten, and inspire. And that's just been a part of who I am. Like I said, since I was a kid, writing poems and short stories, and my family would give it back to me typed up, like, here's your book. But really, truly, I'm a person who just uses words to hopefully help other people know they matter.
Right. I like that. They were encouraging you to write. They were encouraging. They wanted you to see yourself with that book in your hand. I love that. And you have to have that, right? That becomes a mind shift, right? At an early age. Now I can see I was speaking at an event for the National Black Coalition of Federal Aviation Employees last year in Orlando, Florida. And I asked the group about a motto that they had, a motto, right, that they had. And the young lady said, my motto is this. She said, a child can't be what a child can't see.
Ooh, I love it.
See, I did too. I'm like, oh, I love that. So I wish I had her name. I could share her credit with her. But she knows it. If she hears it, she knows who she is. But I love what they were doing with you. They were creating a mindset of
Yeah.
you being able to accomplish what it is you set your mind to. So I like that. So let's talk. So I found it interesting. So you're an author of 12 books now, because I thought it was just nine novels, 12 books. One which was really caught my attention was the book Make Your Today List.
The
Was that
someday list.
the
Yes. The
someday
someday.
list?
Yes.
Make your
Yes.
someday. Oh my goodness, how many people live in someday and it
Yes.
never happens, right?
Oh, yes.
I
Yeah.
thought that was interesting. And then it was coming home, um,
Yep.
being home. And I apologize if I murdered the
Yeah.
titles.
Oh, I get it. There are a lot. There's so yeah. So the someday list was I've written three fiction series, and so the
Uh-huh.
someday list was the first book in my second book series. It was published by Baker Publishing Group. It was my first Essence bestseller,
Yeah.
and then out of that one, you had Dreams That Won't Let Go, and then Worth a Thousand Words, and then the series you're talking about with Coming Home. That's a new series, another 3-book series.
All
Coming
right.
Home was a Target Store's recommended read when it was published, and then it was
I like
followed by
that.
Lead Me Home
Yeah.
and Finding Home. So it's the story of 3 different sisters. So all of my books, even when they're parts of series, I write them as standalone. So
Yeah.
wherever a reader starts, they won't
Oh,
feel lost. But yes, those are some of
I,
my titles.
I like that. So out of all of them, now you also have the poem that you just
Yes,
released,
yes.
and I love the cover.
Thank
If you
you.
can
Yeah,
talk, I'll let you talk about the cover and the book itself here in a second.
yeah, there
But
it is. Yeah.
what is it? Watercolored Pearls,
Yes, yes.
right? Is that your baby?
Yeah, you see me kind of go, yeah. So that's actually my third book ever. It's the third book in the series. The first 2 books are out of print. Speak to My Heart was my
Yes.
very first novel. It was published almost 20 years ago in 2004. And then you had it was Speak to My Heart, and then it was Nothing But the Right Thing, which was the
Okay.
second book in that series. And Watercolored Pearls is the third book in that series, but it's been republished as a standalone. And I
Okay.
love that book because it was the first novel that I wrote that made me cry while I was writing it. And I'm
Wow.
like, I know that these characters are fictional, but I
Right.
had written them in such a realistic way that the journeys that these 3 women were on, very different journeys, three friends who love each other, very different journeys and struggling.
Yeah.
And an older woman mentors them. They go to visit her for the weekend and she sees their struggles. And she serves them breakfast one morning and she puts a bag of multicolored pearls near each of their plates at breakfast. And then they're there because she's getting in a big award. So she's like, you all are here to celebrate me, but let me tell you
Right.
about some of the struggles I've been through. And
Okay.
then she tells them her story and says to them, each of you all are pearls in progress. And
Yeah.
pearls are formed in an oyster because they're irritants in an oyster. So you can't
Right.
become a pearl. You don't get the pearl unless you go through the irritation. You all are
Right.
in the irritation stage, but your pearls in progress and you're multicolored pearls. You're not going to be the same. Your journeys are going to vary. So that makes you a watercolored pearl. So
Yeah.
as I was writing that, I was like, I really was feeling that message. And that book was written, I want to say, I think it was published like 2007 or 8, but that
Okay.
story endures. Even to this day, I hear from
Yeah.
readers who love that story.
Yeah, because I'm thinking it relates, right?
Yeah.
The fact that it makes the author cry,
Yeah.
it hits home, right? And it's something that shows that we have to go through a process of change,
Yes.
and
Yes.
we can hamper that, right? We can hinder that change, right? We can self-sabotage, right?
Right.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about now. I've heard your speech and I loved it. And you,
Thank
you talk
you.
about, what you can accept when you open your hands. You talk about something that it just blew my mind when you said it, because I've always been one, I hate to lose. But
Yes.
the concept of losing to gain was
Yes.
interesting to me. So talk to me about those two concepts that you presented in your speech at the National
Yes.
Press Club.
Thank you. Yeah, so I gave a speech at the National Press Club where we both were a few months ago. I guess it's a few weeks ago. It hasn't been a couple of months yet. And my speech was about living the life untapped. And I talked about the very last conversation I had with my mother in spring 2005 before she passed away. Now, I didn't, of course, know it was going to be our last conversation. And we were just chatting about something. I had a young son. He was 3 years old, and I was having to make a decision. And I had invested this, money for this big program. And I'm like, oh, but I don't feel like it's the right thing. And just out of the blue, she just said, sometimes, sweetheart, you have to lose to gain. If
Mm,
that's not a right fit for him, sometimes you have to lose to gain. And in the moment that she said it, I thought, well, this is a profound conversation to have
Right.
on a Tuesday night. And
Right.
okay, like I wasn't expecting that from her.
Yeah.
And little did I know that that was going to be my last conversation with her.
Yeah.
And I was actually telling someone this recently, like, when you're going through grief and you think about loss, sometimes that person is still with you. So all these years later, that message has carried me through so many life decisions. When I made a decision to leave my newspaper job to focus on writing novels full time, when I've made career decisions, when I've made other choices and decisions about friendships or things with my children or just personal decisions, sometimes you have to lose to gain. And we
Yeah.
think we're really losing, but there
Yeah.
is this gain when we have the courage to open our fists. We think we're letting go. We think we're holding tight. When we can open those fists,
Yeah.
not only are we letting go, but guess what? We're allowing something good to come in.
Yeah, and I love that when you said that, I'm like, wow, because so many times we want to fight change, right? We
Yeah,
lose, we're uptight, we go into this place of oh my gosh, I'm sitting over in the corner and I'm uptight, mad all day long because I can't talk to nobody. I miss carrying on conversations with everybody else because I lost. Not
right.
realizing that that was an opportunity to learn that today I just wasn't good enough. Now
Mhm.
look at my game film and figure out why I wasn't good enough and how to improve. What can I learn? I like that.
Right.
I like that. So you mentioned you left your job as a news reporter. So that how long were you doing that?
Gosh, I was a newspaper reporter for 15 years, full
Okay.
time. And again, this was back shortly after my mom died, like
Yeah.
2006. I
Okay.
left full time newspaper reporting. I was a social issues reporter. I was
Uh-huh.
writing an inspirational column, a weekly column for my local newspaper here in Richmond,
Right.
Virginia. It's like they had done a focus group. It was the number one reason they were buying the Saturday paper. So it was
Wow.
at the height of
Yeah.
that success that this pivot, which is the name of my poem, kind of came
Yeah.
about. And I just was like, I got an opportunity to have a 3-book contract from my publisher. And yet I had this
Congrats.
demanding journalism career. And then I had a young family. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not trying to be superwoman. And having just lost my mom too, I was leaning into what matters most.
Yeah.
So yeah, I took that courageous decision to leave this newspaper, this journalism career I loved,
Right.
go for the novel writing career, which was a lifelong dream, to
Yeah.
see where that would lead. And I will tell you that a year after I left the newspaper writing the inspirational column, they invited me back to write a parenting column as a freelancer. And I wrote that
Awesome.
column for 11 years, even though I went on to take on other jobs and another career. I was able to keep my foot in journalism.
I love that. So I talk about, the mountain that we've got to climb, and that mountain being that gap that stands between what we could become. And
Yeah.
a lot of times there are people who will approach that mountain or that gap and they'll stand there, look at it, wish that they were at the top, wish that they could get in there and climb, but they never take action, they turn away. And then there are those who climb and they accomplish that certain goal that they've set based off of what they've been taught. And they think,
Mm.
oh, I'm here, I made it, I've done it, and they stay there for the rest of their lives. But you decided that you were going to step out of that comfort zone and you were going to move on forward. What was the mind shift? I mean, talk to me about the self, because there's a lot of self conversation going on right
Oh,
there,
yeah.
right? Woo,
Yeah.
wait a minute, hold on a second. If I leave, the money's not guaranteed. What about the
Yeah.
benefits? Talk to me a little bit about that decision and how long it took you to make that decision.
Because I'm a person of faith, it took me only about 6 months. But again, it was like right after my mom had died. And I think that was probably a big reason I kind of had the courage because I wasn't in the
Yeah,
space of tomorrow's not promised. And I had these young children. And I always loved to write. I knew I wanted to be a writer, like every writer. I want to be a New York Times bestseller.
yeah,
That's a dream that's still going to happen.
yeah,
But
yes,
I was at a point where even before I decided to leave the paper, I knew that I couldn't be so focused on my writing career that I couldn't be a good parent. So I was like, well, I'm going to do some things as an author, but I'm going to prioritize this parenting season. So
right,
I did do some things. I was out, traveling. I was doing some things, but I always did it around my children because I wanted to make sure that they didn't have a successful mom that they didn't know. So that was a priority. And again, 2 big offers here. Continue this wonderful column writing journalism career,
right,
write 3 books, no ability to do that and maintain a
yeah,
decent family life. So I started actually like seeking other types of jobs. So, well, let me just work part-time doing this, or let me just do that. And I vividly remember one morning I went in and sat at my desk at the newspaper. I would always get there super early. And when I sat down, it wasn't an audible voice, but I do feel like it was God speaking to me. And that voice or whatever it was in my spirit said, if you continue to sit in this seat, the person who's meant to come next can't sit here.
Mm.
That was kind of mind blowing because it was like, it's about me, but it's not just about you. There are other people that I have purpose for too. It was
Yeah.
like, whoa. So it still took me about 6 months after that. Of course, I was married at the time and I
Yeah.
talked to my spouse about it. I kind of started planning. All right, let me
And
kind of like,
that's what I'm interested in, the conversation at home. You gonna do what?
yeah. I'm no longer married. We co-parent our young adult children well. But
Yeah.
at that time, it was a conversation, and it was sort of like, here's my plan. I have the 3-book deal. I
Right.
was doing some freelance writing for national publications. I'll ramp that up. I was doing some keynote speaking. So I
Yeah.
had already started building a bridge with
Okay.
things that I could ramp up as I needed to. So it wasn't me just sort of taking this leap with no plan. The book contract was a nice, solid piece, a chunk
Okay.
to help make it happen. And I
Right.
knew I had these other avenues that I had kind of been working on a little bit. Now I was able to take them to another level. And I will tell you that when I wrote that final column, I wrote my farewell column. It was so interesting. So many people in the community admired what I was doing. I was like getting calls and emails from people saying, "Can you, do some consulting for my company? Can
Oh,
you do this
cool.
keynote message? Can you write for this blog?" And so I had these opportunities come to me because I made it known that I was taking this leap. And I had always tried to work in excellence, meet
Yeah.
people better than I found them. So I
Yeah.
had I had a reputation. People had trust with me, things of that nature. So I actually made more in that year that I left working for myself than I had as a full-time reporter.
Right.
And I'll tell you, the recession happened and all those kind of things, and I wound up going back into full-time work,
Yeah.
pivoting back into that season. But even then, I have continued to maintain to write books and things of that nature. But yeah, it was a leap of faith in my mindset.
Right.
I took the practical steps to build that bridge, and then I married the two. And I did have, like I said, I had the support of the people around me, and that was very helpful.
I like that you bring up the fact that when you decided to move, when you decided to take action and get out of that seat, opportunities start coming your way. Where
Yes.
a lot of us start thinking about, like you said, closed fists, right? Closed fists. We start thinking about what we're going to lose and
Right.
what could happen on the negative side, but we don't think about what could happen on the positive side. So you have to applaud you on that one. And like I said, I know the conversation at home. Like I said, the conversation at home. No, you cannot quit your job. I know we got kids we take care of. We got a rent. We got all of
Exactly.
that stuff.
Exactly.
So you
Yeah.
have to. That's something that I think is inspiring as well, to go against, what to not go against what's in your heart, right? And I
Right,
think
and I tell you, people around me were there was a lot of like, "Why are you leaving a successful journalism career? Why are you leaving this column at the height of its existence? Are you sure about this?" Now, I made sacrifices, like my kids didn't go to summer camp that summer.
right,
I was home, we're gonna do fun things. I'll take you out into to the museum. I made sure they had things to do. So,
right,
yes, you make these practical trade-offs, but in a way that doesn't diminish what
yes,
their needs are, but it helps build a family because now I was able to take them to school and pick them up
right.
from school and do my work during the day, and then we could do dinner together. So,
They
you
probably
balance.
enjoyed that better.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
mama at home. You got a son?
I do. I do.
Yeah.
My son, and speaking of my son, which really touched my heart, my son is 22. He's a
Okay.
senior in college. And I actually, while we were at
Awesome.
our Speak Sell Shine event in early October,
Yeah.
I posted on my Instagram and my Facebook page. When he went back to college for his senior year, he
Yeah.
left me a note on my bed, and I
Wow.
went upstairs to see it later that night, and it said, "You are my superhero." And
Awesome.
so he had found an essay he had written his sophomore year, like 2 years earlier. I'd never seen
Yeah.
it. He'd
Right.
written an essay for class about what it means to be a superhero. And he had written that I was his superhero because I
Wow.
would take time to go away to work on my books, to, even if I were down in the living room or if I went away, sometimes I go away to a hotel for quiet to write. And he
Yeah.
wrote that I never felt bad about that because I knew she was accomplishing a goal. And it was like she was being a superhero, going away to put her cape on, and she would come
Yeah.
back with something amazing. So when
Oh,
you think
wow.
about the kids, I did not realize. I mean, I knew I was having a positive impact, but for
Yeah.
him to remember so vividly that I was doing something purposeful, and he saw that as a heroic act, that meant so much to me.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you said. It's about me, but it's not about me, right? It's
Right,
bigger
right.
than you, right? And you don't realize it at the time. But let's face it, as parents, our kids see what we do. And
Yes.
and they live like we live if they keep, you know what I mean? They follow. What is it? Les Brown says, he said it's either caught or taught. And
Yes.
they catch the things that we do. If you don't believe me, say a cuss word, and a little kid will pick that up in a heartbeat, right? They pick up
Exactly,
all the things you
exactly.
don't want them to pick up,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But if we just lead by example, I think it's very inspiring. So, and that's proof right there. I was going to ask
Yeah.
if you had somebody following in your footsteps to write, and it sounds like he's on his way.
I think he is. He's majoring in business and sports marketing, but he is a really great writer. My daughter's 25. They actually are both good writers, but he
Okay.
likes to write. So I
Yeah.
will not be surprised if he someday he pens a book.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't be surprised if she fools you.
You might. You might.
That is cool. I love it. I love that. So let's talk about you talked about in your I saw on your website and read a little bit about you that you helped a group of women put together an anthology. They basically came together from a class that you were having. Talk to me
Yes,
about that.
yes, it's kinda I think it's right there behind me, that yellow book in the middle there. It's called On Womanhood. So for about 7, almost 8 years, I have, led an online, writers group, and where I coach the writers. It's called Focused Writers,
Yes.
and, basically it formed because at that time I was literally writing 1 book a year. So I was getting these emails, "How do I write a book? Tell me this, tell me that," and I didn't have time to respond to one-off emails. So I formed this group. It's like a membership community. We mostly right now, meet on Facebook, although it's gonna shift next year, gonna have a private platform. But
Okay.
we have like a private group on Facebook. They can ask any questions related to their writing project. Some of them are also speakers. And then we have a monthly call once a month. We actually have our call tonight. And
Right.
on that live call, it's kind of like a round robin. We'll go around and talk about their projects, and I'll kind of give them feedback, advice, education on what they're working on. So during the pandemic, one of them said to me, "We should do a project together. Like, what can
Wow.
we do?" And so the idea came that we would write an anthology. So the anthology is basically a collection of personal essays. And so we talked about, okay, I'm going to take you from the idea stage to finished book. What do we want
Okay.
our idea to be? So we landed on, well, we're all women. We just happen to be a group of like 20 women. 11 of them signed on to the project. And we're going to all write an essay about some facet of what it means to be a woman. One woman wrote about forgiving her father. I wrote about the babysitter that helped me raise my children, per se, so I could keep my full time career. Another
Right.
woman wrote about leadership. Another one wrote about aging gracefully. So some facet of what it means to be a woman.
Yeah.
And then they wrote the essays. We had a developmental editor to walk them through the idea, the process of, you got this great thing, but you know what? It ain't great yet. We got
Yeah.
to edit it. We got to dig a little deeper. Then
Right.
we worked together to do a second edit. And then we chose a cover design. And then I even helped them write a whole marketing plan. And then we talked about our launch. And so the book launched in February of 2022. And it really took them through the whole process. And at the end, they were worn out because they realized it's not just, oh, I'm going to write a book and oh, it's going to be published and this is going to be fun. They
Yeah.
saw all of the hard work behind the scenes to go from idea stage to finished book.
Right. And now they can do it as well.
Yes,
So
yes.
so coaching is a big part of your life.
It is, and I always say I love the writing, like I lead with the writing and with the speaking, but yes, because you have to pay it forward in some way. So this group has allowed me, and I do teach at writers conferences around the country. I'm actually going to teach a virtual journal writing class in January. Details are on my website. But
Yeah.
with this particular group, it's like we become a small community, and so it's like everybody nurtures each other. And so we have women from around the country in the group. There's a retired newspaper editor in the group. We have an attorney in the group.
Yeah.
We have just folks from all facets of life who are interested in writing. Some of them want to write books and have published. Others may be interested in blogging. So, yeah, it's just a solid community of, here's what my idea is. How do I elevate that? And we really support each other through that.
Okay. I like that. You create that connection. I believe connection is huge in my book. I'm like you. I want to talk to people because I want to break up that monotony that they have going on up in here sometimes.
Yeah.
We're stressed out about the job, we're stressed out at home, the bills, how we're gonna get the kids fed, the rent paid, and all the other stuff. But
Yes.
just breaking it up for a little bit to talk about what you love to do for a
Yeah.
moment, I feel like it frees up people's minds. So I like that a lot. So let me ask you, so what would be a big aha moment that you've had to face that outside of the job and your career and everything
Yes.
else, with I know my mom as a single parent, she's taking care of 3 kids. It was a tough time. So
Yeah.
I know moms have those aha moments, those moments where I just need y'all to go away for a second. I need to sit down and think about it. But your path, did it ever get detoured as being just the single mom taking care of the kids?
That's a good question. I would say not so much with the single mom parenting. Well, you know what? I guess I'll take that back. I was going to say no because I have co-parented effectively with my former husband. For 10 years we co-parented. They'd spend a week with me, a week with him,
Okay.
and just made sure that they're very connected to him as they are to me. I think the detour might have been with the writing of the books because my last novel came out in 2016. And
Okay.
that was the year that my daughter went off to college. And I
Wow.
turned and looked at my son because he was entering ninth grade. And I thought, wow, I only have 4 years with him and I'm going to
Yeah.
have an empty nest. So it was an intentional decision. I finished writing Finding Home. And then I thought to myself, I'm going to pause writing the fiction because he was an athlete. Because when you write fiction, you really do have to, like, I call it going off to your writer's cave. So, like, I
Yeah.
could write nonfiction in the middle of a bomb going off because as a
Gotcha.
journalist, you are taught to meet that deadline and tell that story. I can do that with nonfiction. I worked 9/11. I worked so many things where I've had to hone in and get that journalistic story out. With fiction, I need to live in that fictional world. So
Okay.
I usually write very first thing in the morning before I check anything else out, or I go away for the weekend. I didn't want to be off in the weekend or new book is out and I've got to go off on this book signing tour and I'm missing track and I'm missing football or
Yeah.
I'm just missing being home and my 17-year-old upstairs playing video games, not thinking about me, but
Right.
might come down and ask one strategic question and mom needs to be present. So
Yeah.
that was kind of a detour, maybe not so much tied to the single parenting, but because we were co-parenting, the weeks he was with his dad, I'm saying to my girlfriends, yeah, we can go catch dinner. The weeks that he was here, they were like, he's 17. I'm like, but he needs my presence.
There you go.
So yeah, it was a detour. And I thought when he goes off to college, then I'll kind of pick back up my fiction writing, which was 2020. He went off to
Yeah.
college, but it was during the pandemic. So of course,
Yeah.
other things were going on. So that was one detour. And I did have a health crisis in 2020 when I was in the midst of, okay, I'm ramping up. I'm going to finish this novel.
Yeah.
So I will say that detour kind of taught me that, yes, I'm a writer. I love writing and inspiring, but I wasn't able to write because it included migraines. I
Yeah.
wasn't able to write or read as much during that year. And it taught me that what we do is powerful, but who we are is more powerful.
Yeah.
So I could be Stacy the encourager, I could be the mom, I could be the
Right.
sister, the daughter, I could be those things. I couldn't necessarily be the writer that year. And I
Yeah.
was not going to be okay in the space of just being. So I
Yeah.
think my two lessons with those pauses was we're not what we do. We are, our purpose is larger than what we do. So
Right.
yes, mostly through the writing, but I can be an encourager. That's my gift in any season and space, even when I'm going through a challenging time. And then with my son, that was an intentional pause that I do not regret because I'm living my best life in my
Yeah.
empty season because I
Uh-huh.
poured into him and my daughter in those seasons in intentional ways. And I'm still very connected to them, still very close to them, but they are cheering me on now as
That's good.
mom back writing and
Right.
speaking and doing all the things I want to do.
So I like it because if you don't mind, we stay on with the single mom
Yeah.
standpoint because I know single moms, like I said, you got to do everything. You're everything. You're,
Yeah.
you're you're all. You're working. You're coming home. You're making sure things get done. What would you say to the single mom who says, "I don't have time. I got to take care of the kids. I got the job. I got all this." What would you say to them about the importance of connecting to themselves and really digging into what it is you love? Because I think your book is "Who's Talking to Your Heart," right? That has something to do with that, correct?
Yeah, that was my first nonfiction book. It's a faith-based book, Who Speaks to Your Heart, Tuning in to Hear God's Whispers. And it is for busy women on the
Yeah.
go, trying to find time to hear from God, but also checking in and tuning in with themselves. I would say kind of what you were saying earlier about some lessons are caught and some are taught, the caught
Yeah.
part. I think it's very important for our kids to see us taking a breath for ourselves, treating ourselves well, practicing some self-care, because, when they go out into the world, we're going to be saying to them, slow down, make sure you do this, make sure you do that. If they never saw us do it, they were like, you do it. You didn't do
Right.
that. So like we need to teach them how to do that as well. So my kids are very intentional
Yeah.
about saying, you know what? I need a rest day today, or I'm gonna go get a massage, or I'm just gonna like take some quiet meditation time. My son now, he practices yoga more than I do. Now
Oh,
he does
really?
it for athletic purposes. He
Yeah.
runs track. So, but I think it is hilarious. I will come home and he's over here in a yoga pose. I'm like, you are. But he did it in high school too, which I thought was
Okay.
hilarious. He's like, I'm doing it because
Yeah.
football and track. I need to stay
Yeah.
limber. But there's something about that where he's practicing self-care. So
Yeah.
I would say to that single mom, and when I wrote parenting columns for 11 years, the
Yeah.
experts would say this as well. Even if you give yourself 10 minutes in the shower, like that's what I would do when my kids were young and I was still working full time at the newspaper. My first two novels came out while I was working full time. My quiet time would be the drive home from work. I
Yeah.
would not listen to the radio.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call anybody. I would have 30 minutes of quiet time in the car with my thoughts.
Yeah. I like
That
that.
was my self-care. And then it would be in the shower. And I would take the longest showers in history, still do. That was my prayer
So
time. That was my
these,
thinking time, my self-motivation time. So I would say to that mom, when you pour into yourself, you're going to give a better version of you to your child. And I do think that's very important if you are a single mom, because sometimes it's just you. Like I said, I had a co-parent.
yeah.
You don't always have that co-parent there, but when you can show up as your best self and you pour into yourself, I'm telling you, that is such a gift to your kids because that's teaching them that you value yourself and you're teaching them to value themselves. And it really allows you to show up for them in a way that you can appreciate yourself later.
Yeah, I agree with you. So when I was in the Army, they called those showers "I love me showers."
Oh, really? That had a name. Okay, see, I didn't even know. I love it. I'm going to try
You,
that. I'm
you
texting you.
in,
I love me shower. I want
no,
that.
you in there too long. You just in there, but it's hey, it's really good. Just
Yes.
just relax your mind, and as the song goes, relax your mind and let your conscience be free, right?
Yes, I love it. I didn't know it had a name. I'm using that going forward.
I love me shower.
Yes.
Man, so tell me about some of the people you've worked with throughout your career and how they've kind of taught you about momentum shifting or really focusing on where it is your dream is.
Gosh, I mean, that's a loaded question because I've had the opportunity to work with so many wonderful people. Like I've been a journalist for 30 years. I still consider myself a journalist, even though I'm not doing full-time newspaper reporting. And then a novelist for 20 years. One of the people I would say more recently, probably in the past 5 years, has been actress Daphne Maxwell Reid. Most people know
Okay.
her as Aunt Viv from The
Yeah.
Fresh Prince.
Yeah.
And she lives
I
here in
saw she did your art, your graphics on one of your books. I'm sorry to
I
interrupt you.
know, right?
I saw that. I was like, what?
I
Really?
I said the same thing. So how I met Daphne was my book, The Someday List, was coming out. And I'm always thinking like, how can I create an experience for my audiences? So I was having a big book signing at Barnes and Noble. And because I had been a columnist, I have a pretty huge following in the area. So I already knew there were going to be a lot of people there. So I invited a local TV anchor and didn't know her. I knew she and her husband, Tim Reed, they had started a studio in the
Right.
Richmond area. I literally wrote her a blind email. Hi, Miss Reed, Stacy Hawkins Adams. I'm having this book signing at Barnes and Noble. Will you come and share your someday list? She
Right.
said yes. It was a cold call. I'm sure she
Wow.
went and Googled me, found my website. I was like, she is going to come. She glided into it was January of 2010. She
Yeah.
glided into the book signing within her fur coat. I have pictures still. Stood up at the Barnes and Noble podium and shared her someday list.
Oh
And we
wow.
became fast friends from there. So that was 2010. So
And when you
fast
say
forward.
you say Tim Reed, that's WKRP in Cincinnati.
Yes,
Tim Reed, right?
exactly.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so she came and did that for me. I was very grateful. And then after that, she just was like, there were literally 300 people there. I'm sure some of them came to see her instead of me because
Right.
they all stayed to buy
No,
books.
no, they came to see you.
We kind of claim it for both because I sold all the books that day. But after that, we just formed this fast friendship. And she was like, whatever you would like to do, I'm on board. So
Awesome.
fast forward 2014, I hosted an inspirational brunch. She emceed my brunch for me. And then one
Wow.
day in I think it was 2018, maybe 2019, we were having lunch and I said, she asked, what were you going to do? What am I doing next? I was like, well, I've been traditionally published, which my novels are, but I want to self-publish a book of my original inspirations because on Facebook, on social media, I often post inspirational quotes and musings. And everyone was saying, oh gosh, I would love to have these in a book. So I was like, well, I've been working on it. I'll have it done. And she's like, well, I love photography. So she had these pictures she had taken of these beautiful flowers. She's like, let's do a line of note cards. We're going to put
Wow.
my pictures with your words. We're going to
Oh,
have these note cards, like a greeting card line. So we created that. And then
yeah.
after we finished that project together, which you can find that on my website, I said, well, now I got to get back to the book, Daphne. And it was going to be called Abound Principles for Next Level Living. And she's like, send it to me. I'm going to format it for you. So she did.
Wow.
She formatted the book of Abound, the quotes and original musings. I've actually taken that offline temporarily because I'm going to reformat it,
Okay.
package it more 4x6 size. So it'll be a gift book size. But
Okay.
that's been a collaboration with her. I had a second brunch last year, October 2022, and I was able to get Bernadette Stannis, better known as Thelma from Good Times,
Yeah, yeah.
be a keynote speaker. So that was
Wow.
amazing to have her come collaborate with me. So I think in terms of like celebrities, those are people,
Yeah,
but I would just think also like just good friends in the community. I've had people come out anytime I wanted to host an event. I
yeah,
had quite a few people speak at those events. I've had an opportunity to interview just a range of amazing people about their
yeah.
journeys. And so just I'm getting ready to launch a YouTube channel next year about celebrating the power of women's stories. And so I'll be able to
Okay.
share more of those stories.
That's cool. So that's a great example. There's a quote that I love. It says, if you set yourself on fire, people will come from far away to see you burn. And that don't mean setting yourself on fire with matches and everything. It just means being excellent, being great at what it is you do. And people will come with far to watch you do what you do and to help out. And I think
Yeah.
that's very inspiring because a lot of times when people who don't attack that mountain that they must climb, right? That gap that they need to cross, they don't do it because they don't have the resources or because
Mhm.
they believe they don't have the help that they need. But all you need to do is just start performing. And I think that's a great example of what you're doing and why people are following you is because it's inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you. And speaking back to the single mom and crossing the mountains, I don't know why this is. Oh, I was talking with someone yesterday about a trip that my daughter took when she was in high school. She went to actually wanted to go to South Africa with her school.
Uh-huh.
And the school, they were able to fund part of it, but there's this huge chunk as a single mom I could manage.
Right.
But I'm like, this is a trip of a lifetime for
Yeah.
a 15-year-old to be able to go to South Africa to see herself reflected in those people. So
Right.
what we did was we wrote a letter. We sent it out to friends and family. She wrote the letter. I edited it. I would like to take this trip to South Africa. This is going to be life changing for me because of XYZ. It was a leadership conference, and there were going to be all these schools from South Africa, all these other kids her
Wow.
age. And she was going to have a chance to stand up and speak in front of this group of people. I'm
Okay.
telling you, we had a PayPal link, or they would give me money in church, or they would
Yeah.
call and tell us to come by and pick it up. They made sure she had the balance of what she needed to pay the rest of the balance to go on the trip. And here's some extra for spending money. And here's what,
Wow.
you need to get a coat. You need this or that. And
Yeah.
so the way we thanked them, she made sure she took lots of pictures. And when we got
Yeah.
back, she created like a digital scrapbook.
Okay.
And we sent it out to every single person that had contributed because we wanted them to be a part of that journey for her. So
Yeah.
rather than just a regular thank you, here's what I was able to do. I was able to stand where Nelson Mandela was
Right.
jailed. I was able
Oh,
to see where Mahatma Gandhi was. So everybody that gifted her felt like, wow, I helped do something powerful. And
yeah.
yet as a single mom, I was able to send my daughter to South Africa. So I think
Yeah.
you're right. When you have that momentum, you kind of ask yourself, not what can't I do? How can I make this happen? And people
Yeah.
really will want to come forward and help you if it's something powerful. And
Yeah.
if you know how to go back and say thank you.
Hello, I'm C. Eric Collier, the mayor of motivation. As a motivational keynote speaker, veteran, and two-time Amazon International bestselling co-author, I bring a unique blend of inspiration, experience, and success to your event. I specialize in helping individuals unlock their true potential and break through barriers to turning the impossible into possible.
Because I'm somebody who believes that the largest gap an individual will face is the gap that stands between where they are now and what they could become. So the question becomes, are you willing to climb? The greatest trick the mind will ever pull is convincing you that your greatness does not exist. Mama used to say, she said, Eric, what you do in the dark will come out in the light. And she means that you reap what you sow. You get what you put in. And so you got to put the work in. Why? Because you're going to step your game up and tap into that untapped potential of yours and become the greatest person that you could possibly become.
I woke up, I was about to lose everything. And so my wife was about to leave me, and that meant my 3 children were going to be gone, which really hurt me because I would fall short on a promise to my kids where I told them that I was their father. Nobody would ever be in their house taking care of them. Nobody would be responsible for them. They never had to worry about calling anybody daddy but me. momentum shift. When you get stuck, you got to find a way to get going. And that is all about elevating your performance. You have to realize that high level results are not products of low level effort. So you got to step your game up. So you get stuck, you got to get yourself moving. And when you're down in the dumps, you're the only one that's going to be there. So you got to be your own hype man.
What happens is when you don't realize that you have all that you ever need to create the life that you want to live, you're missing out. You're standing at the base of that mountain thinking and hoping somebody's going to save you when all you got to do is take action. Theodore Roosevelt said, he said that the credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena with their face marred in dust with sweat and blood. You got to get in the arena, claim your moment, take the opportunity to take your shot. Then when you're in that arena, think about this. I got to step my game up.
Eric's message was extremely powerful.
The power of overcoming is not just connected to you. You're rising because the people behind you are counting on you. Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
When you choose me, you're not just booking a speaker. You're inviting a transformational experience that will leave your audience empowered and ready to conquer their goals. Let's make your event unforgettable. Reach out to me today at the number 1 momentumshift.com. That's the number 1 momentumshift.com. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Gratitude is huge. But you're right, though. That's the mind shift that has to happen. Not I can't because I don't. How can I now, right? What's the opportunity in this problem that I'm facing, right? I like it. Or what can I gain from this loss, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like so what do you have coming up next?
Gosh, well, you mentioned the pivot, which is this.
Yes, let's talk about that.
It's just like one poem. I turned it into a book, so I recited this
Yeah,
at
you
the
can't
launch.
see the cover that well. Can
Yeah,
you move it to maybe the lighting is blocking
little
it.
light. Is that
There we
better?
go. Yeah, that's
There
better.
we
There
go.
we go.
Yeah, it's called The Pivot, and I call it my boutique book because I don't have this available like on your typical, book channels like Amazon. You can go to my website, stacyhawkinsadams.com, and that's intentional because I wanted it to have like a certain size and it's got a special quality paper, and so I wanted to make sure it had a nice feel for the woman who would receive it.
Yeah.
And I say it's for women because you see a woman on the cover. She's pivoting.
Yeah.
You can't see this, but she's not holding ballet slippers. She's got a pair of heels.
Heels,
Because
yeah.
that's what we women do. We put on our fabulous heels. We go
Yeah.
out and we look fabulous, and we're dancing through all kinds of seasons. And so
Yes.
this is for the woman who's been challenged, who's gone through grief, who's struggled, who's gotten knocked down. She's picked herself back up.
Right.
She needs to dance through life. We can pivot through these seasons and show up for ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's what this is about. It's about the self-care of looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, I see you. I honor you. That's one of the two of the lines in this poem. And, it's one of those things where I've never thought of myself as a poet,
Yeah.
but it literally poured out of me one morning when I got up to write a chapter in my novel. This poem poured out of me. So I feel like I'm just a vessel for it.
Yeah.
And folks that have read it, I had a woman who's dealing with a brain tumor. She's read it. A woman who was just laid off from her job. All kinds of people pivoting through whatever kinds of season. It's something to just encourage you. And so it's like, small, you can put it in your satchel, your purse, whatever, carry it with you. It's a great gift to give up to other people. So this is my most recent effort. And like I said, it's kind of a self-published project, but I'm also working on a new novel.
Okay.
And like I said, I'm going to be teaching some virtual and in-person writing classes for 2024. So ramping up for all of those exciting things.
I love that. I love it, man. I tell you, let me ask you this. So that cover, looking at that cover, there's a sense of freedom that's there, right?
Yes.
Do you feel free? Do you really feel
That's a
free?
great question. I do because, again, go back to my faith, and I try to operate in a place of peace. That doesn't mean that every day is great. It doesn't mean that there are not hiccups. It doesn't mean that there are not losses. There are still current losses that happen. But when I can ground myself in, Stacy, this is who you are. This is your purpose. Are you showing up in the world in a way that's good for yourself, good for other people? Are you doing your best to leave people better than you found them? If I can check all those boxes, even when things don't go right, then yes, I am living free because I'm living as my authentic self. I'm not trying to be anybody else. I'm not trying to tap dance to somebody else's beat. I'm showing up as Stacy. You may not like Stacy.
Right.
You might not love Stacy. You may not even you want Stacy to go sit down, but Stacy's going to walk in her purpose, dance to her pivot, and just try to be the best she can.
Yeah, I like that. I like it. Is there anything you want to leave the audience outside? I mean, that was great. But if there's anything else you'd like to leave them, any special message that you'd like to leave them?
Gosh, well, I think first of all, thank you again for having me. And I love that I'm having this conversation about women with a male. And I like to say that I often include males either in the programming I do or in my interviews because, hey, you all are our biggest and best allies. We need you as our cheerleaders. We need you to let us land in soft spaces. We need you to hold space for us when we need to pivot.
Right.
So thank you for that. And I think I would just say to your viewers and your listeners, um, find the strength to look fear in the face. Remember that it's that cliche. Fear is false evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
Ask yourself what you can do. Start to make that list because no, it's not easy. Make the list of possibilities. Trust that thing in your heart. That's what's in your spirit because that nudge, that intuition, that inner knowing, that's telling you something. And when you honor that, whatever else is happening, you will be free. You will live free. You will be able to pivot and walk in that momentum and live life untapped.
Love it. Live life untapped. Man, did we tell what that meant to you? Did we talk
Gosh,
about
to me, if you go to my blog,
it?
lifeuntapped.com, I have a whole paragraph because I
Okay.
like words, I guess, that tells you what it means to me. But to me, it means, like I just said, walking in my authenticity. My brother, my only brother, who was very dear to me, much older than me, but very dear to me, passed away last year, 5 days before Christmas. And
Uh,
I've also lost a sister to sarcoidosis, and my mom is no longer living, as I mentioned. So I've
right.
dealt with a lot of loss, and I think
Yeah.
losing those people so they could gain their wings
Yes.
has taught me that tomorrow is not promised, but while we're here, what is that impact we want to make in our dash between our
Yeah.
life and our death? And it's taught me to live with joy. And when we do that, I'm honoring my mother, I'm honoring my brother, I'm honoring my sister
Yes.
because they believed in me and they loved me. So, life untapped is yes, we have to walk in these parameters and check the boxes and pay the bills. But life untapped is understanding that whatever our purpose is, when we live that out, we are living free.
Oh, how can I love that. I wanted to make sure I didn't leave here without talking about Life Untapped because I want to make sure because I loved when you talked about that. So how can they connect with you?
They can find me at stacyhawkinsadams.com. Again, Stacy with no E. And then on all of my platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, also known as X, it's Stacy Inspires. So I hope that everyone will connect with me. I would love to connect with them there.
And Stacy, you truly do inspire. Thank you for joining me this week. That's it for this episode of The Momentum Shift. Stacy Hawkins Adams, I apologize. You
Okay.
truly are a momentum shifter. And I really have enjoyed this episode with you. And I look forward to collaborating with you, working a little bit more, and just following what you do, because I think you're doing some great things. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me. Until next time, this is The Momentum Shift, a show designed to get you inspired, get you moving, because we want you to get results. I want you to live in that impossible that you think of right now. So with that, I'll see you next week. Take care. Hello, I'm C. Eric Collier, the mayor of motivation. As a motivational keynote speaker, veteran, and two-time Amazon International bestselling co-author, I bring a unique blend of inspiration, experience, and success to your event. I specialize in helping individuals unlock their true potential and break through barriers to turning the impossible into possible.
Because I'm somebody who believes that the largest gap an individual will face is the gap that stands between where they are now and what they could become. So the question becomes, are you willing to climb? The greatest trick the mind will ever pull is convincing you that your greatness does not exist. Mama used to say, she said, Eric, what you do in the dark will come out in the light. And she means that you reap what you sow. You get what you put in. And so you got to put the work in. Why? Because you're going to step your game up and untap into that untapped potential of yours and become the greatest person that you can possibly become.
I woke up, I was about to lose everything. And so my wife was about to leave me, and that meant my 3 children were going to be gone, which really hurt me because I would fall short on a promise to my kids where I told them that I was their father. Nobody would ever be in their house taking care of them. Nobody would be responsible for them. They never had to worry about calling anybody daddy but me. Momentum shift. When you get stuck, you got to find a way to get going. And that is all about elevating your performance. You have to realize that high-level results are not products of low-level effort. So you got to step your game up. So you get stuck, you got to get yourself moving. And when you're down in the dumps, you're the only one that's going to be there. So you got to be your own hype man.
happens is when you don't realize that you have all that you ever need to create the life that you want to live, you're missing out. You're standing at the base of that mountain thinking and hoping somebody's going to save you when all you got to do is take action. Theodore Roosevelt said, he said that the credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena with their face marred in dust with sweat and blood. You've got to get into the arena, claim your moment, take the opportunity to take your shot. Then when you're in that arena, think about this. I got to step my game up.
Eric's message was extremely powerful.
The power of overcoming is not just connected to you. You're rising because the people behind you are counting on you. Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
When you choose me, you're not just booking a speaker. You're inviting a transformational experience that will leave your audience empowered and ready to conquer their goals. Let's make your event unforgettable. Reach out to me today at the number 1 momentumshift.com. That's the number 1 momentumshift.com.
Thank you for joining The Momentum Shift, a show bringing you interviews and stories of incredible people to help you get inspired, get moving, and get results to ultimately create the life-changing momentum shift that will improve your life. Join host Eric Collier, the mayor of motivation and mental quicksand expert, every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern for The Momentum Shift, the show and change you've been looking for.